Hey y'all, thanks for stopping by. So, over the weekend, I saw a lot of spoilers for the Superman movie. Had to scroll really fast on social media. One of the first times I've had to use mute key phrases on Twitter because I wanted to see the movie for myself. I am a Superman fan. Ever since I was a kid, I've enjoyed that character. I watched the cartoons and I even enjoyed those old movies. Christopher Reeves, people always say he's the quintessential Superman. I think this new Superman, David Cornsweet, I think he did a very good job at upholding what people believe Superman is supposed to not only look like, but talk like and act like in the little bits that we saw him on screen. Now, aside from all the spoilers, the main reason I went to go see Superman on opening weekend was because it made Ben Shapiro mad. He made some post about how it was a bad movie and a review was coming soon. And he did that last year with the Barbie movie, which is also why I went to see the Barbie movie on opening weekend. Because at this point, it's just a rule of thumb. If Ben Shapiro doesn't like the movie, you'll probably at least find it okay. I saw a lot of folks who said that the main reason Ben Shapiro did not like the movie, the main reason a lot of conservative folks who don't like the movie, is because the focal point, the main conflict this between Barovia and Yarnapur is an allegory of the war, Israel and Palestine conflict that's been going on for decades now. And I know a lot of people think that history started on October 7th, but I digress. I don't think this movie is a straight up one to one allegory of the Israel Palestine conflict. I don't think this dictator who's in power is supposed to be a one to one analog of Benjamin Netanyahu, because frankly, that would be too simple and it would be too ham fisted. But I do think that James Gunn gave this movie the direction. If you wanted to give it a political messaging, you could say that he is pro Palestine and pro Ukraine. That's what the movie is supposed to be. If you look at the military conflict that was happening in the movie, you can see these inspirations from real world figures. Starting with the Russia conflict, of course. I'd say the language they speak is kind of Eastern European, like he says "niet" when he says no. Barovia is a dictatorship in this movie. That's important to note as well. I think the most notable, though, is that the Barovian capital, which we see a bird's eye view of at a certain end point of the movie, looks a lot like Moscow. The final point I would make that I would say is distinctly Russian Putin versus distinctly Israel is that the Barovians invaded first, which I know some of you will say that Israel even being there is an invasion of Palestinian land. But like I said at the start, lots of people think that history started on October 7th. So we'll say that the Barovians invading first is the Russian side of things with how they dealt with Ukraine, Crimea, and all that stuff. However, the Israel side of things. Probably the most obvious is the technological advancement of the Barovians compared to the Arporians. That final battle scene where they're lined up with the tanks on the fence line and the Arporians, one of the dudes fighting with a cinder block. I would say that the military uniforms of the Barovians also look like Israeli military uniforms, more so than Russian military uniforms. I think the most obvious way to tell that Barovia is supposed to be an Israel analog is they repeatedly say that Barovia is a longtime ally of the United States, and that Barovia is an interest in the region. Some people will joke that it's the Lex Luthor sending billions of dollars in aid over there in the same way that our government does that seemingly all the time. But Lex Luthor is a private man. I wouldn't exactly go with that one, but I see where you're coming from, and it is kind of funny. Now, with all of that being said, however obvious it is that this movie is dealing with a asymmetrical force, a stronger force invading and taking over the culture of a weaker force, while also lying about their motives and their methods to the general public, I have to put on my annoying leftist thinking cap right now and voice my disdain for the way people have addressed this movie and approached it. It's very obvious when you watch this movie who's the bad guy in this situation, which country is doing wrong. My issue is that people will watch movies like this to feel good about what they think about geopolitical conflicts and concerns, but will do nothing in their life to address it. Even something as simple as calling out the people in your life. When they say bigoted or hurtful things or buying into propaganda, people are too weak willed to even do that. They prefer to have simple comforts and complacency rather than addressing real world problems. All of my complaining aside, though, I did enjoy the movie for what it was. The intro could not have been better done with the 300 years, 3 years, 3 months. Oh my god, that was so perfect. Really good setup for James Gunn's DCU. I liked the brief cameos by the Peacemaker crew. I know James Gunn did produce that as well, but having those characters as a part of that universe is, well, it's a DC universe, so that does make sense. But specifically, the way Peacemaker was portrayed as this sort of like, level-headed, centrist sort of guy on this talk show. I think that bit may have served as a sort of mirror to the general viewing audience as to we need to just be above this all, stiff upper lip, it's not our problem kind of deal. But it seems like it's going to be a big summer for superhero movies. Of course, in about 2 weeks, we have the Fantastic Four movie coming out. And I guess until another conservative talking head wants to tell you that more superhero movies are woke because they deal with injustices and minorities, y'all try to have a good day.